When the alphas entered the compartment, the cubs were alive, but their savior. He had seen many dangerous places in his career, but nothing like what was waiting inside the sealed compartment. Ahead, the thick doors were closed, their edges glowing faintly with red warning lights. The alphas, massive alien predators with sharp claws and glowing eyes, followed silently behind him. They were tense, their movements careful. Jake felt their weight in the air, a sense of power and danger that made his own heart race. The compartment had been a disaster zone when the distress signal came in. The cubs, young members of the alpha species, were trapped inside after a fight with rival predators. The ship's sensors had detected life signs, but no one knew how bad the damage was. Jake had volunteered to lead the entry team, even though he knew the risk. The alphas had agreed to come, though reluctantly, because the cubs were their future, and the idea of losing them was unthinkable. As he reached the control panel, Jake took a deep breath and keyed in the override code. The doors hissed and began to slide open slowly, revealing the compartment beyond. Smoke lingered in the air, and the faint smell of scorched metal stung Jake's nose. Inside, the cubs were huddled together, their small bodies trembling, their eyes wide with fear. They were alive. Relief washed over Jake, but it was sharp and quick, like the tip of a knife. Something was missing. The alphas stepped in first, their heavy feet making the floor vibrate slightly. They scanned the room quickly, their eyes sharp. One of them, a female named Lyra, moved close to the cubs, lowering her massive head to check them over. "They are alive," she said in a low, growling voice. "But where is he?" Jake looked around the compartment, his eyes moving over the debris. Broken panels, twisted metal, and scorch marks covered the walls. There was no sign of the human who had saved the cubs. Ethan Clark, a maintenance engineer from the nearby colony vessel, had been their protector. He had risked everything to keep the cubs safe, and now he was gone. All that remained were small signs of his presence, bloodstains here and there, and a note scratched into the wall in a hurried hand: "Keep fighting. Humanity does not abandon." Corporal Lily Harper crouched near one of the cubs, her soft hands brushing over the young creature's fur. "He saved them," she said quietly, almost to herself. "He really did." The cubs looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes. Jake could see the fear still lingering in their gaze, but there was also a spark of hope. They had survived something that should have killed them, and now they were safe, for the moment. The alphas moved carefully around the compartment. Their large bodies made the space feel smaller, and every movement was deliberate. One of them, a male named Rylan, examined the ventilation shafts. "He went this way," he said, pointing toward a narrow vent at the back of the room. "He took the safest route he could." "The cubs would not have survived without him." Jake nodded. "We'll follow his trail," he said. "We have to find him before it's too late." The cubs huddled closer together as the adults spoke. They were still shaking, but they seemed to understand that they were no longer alone. The human had given them a chance, and now it was up to the others to finish what he had started. Jake moved to the vent that Rylan had indicated. It was small, barely large enough for a human to squeeze through, and far too tight for the alphas. He ran his hands along the edges, feeling the scratches that Ethan had left behind. "He was here," Jake said, his voice firm. "He made it through. He was clever. He knew what he was doing." Lily glanced at him. "Clever is one word for it," she said. "Crazy is another. Only someone desperate would do what he did, but he saved those cubs. That's what matters." The alphas listened silently, their eyes fixed on Jake and Lily. They were not used to relying on humans, and yet in this moment they had no choice. Ethan Clark had proven himself. He had faced creatures far stronger than a human should survive against, and he had come out alive long enough to save others. Jake led the way down the narrow corridor, following the vent system that Ethan had used. The path was tight, dark, and filled with obstacles. Broken panels hung from the walls, sparks flew from exposed wires, and the air was thick with dust and smoke. But Jake pressed on, driven by the knowledge that a life, Ethan's life, was at stake. Lily followed close behind, keeping a careful eye on the cubs that had been placed in a protective carrier. They made small noises, a mixture of fear and curiosity. Jake could hear them breathing, could feel the weight of their lives in his hands. He had seen danger before, but this was different. This was personal. As they moved deeper into the ship, they came across the remnants of Ethan's traps. Simple, clever devices made from scrap metal and wires, designed to slow down any attackers. Jake examined them carefully. "He's smart," he said. "Not just brave, he thought ahead, he knew what could happen and planned for it." Lily nodded, her eyes wide. "That's humanity," she said softly. "We fight even when the odds are against us. We protect each other. We survive." The alphas growled softly, a sound that Jake had learned was close to respect. They were large, powerful creatures who ruled their world with strength and dominance. And yet, in this moment, they recognized something in the human that they had rarely seen in their own kind: courage, intelligence, and a willingness to risk everything for others. Jake paused at a corner where the corridor split into two paths. The left path led to the observation deck, where life signs had been faint but steady. The right path led to the ship's lower maintenance levels, where sensors had gone offline. He looked at Lily and the alphas. "We have to split up," he said. "One team goes left, one goes right. We cover more ground that way." Lyra stepped forward. "I will go with you," she said, pointing to the left path. "These cubs belong to my pack. I will not leave them." Ryland's deep voice rumbled. "I will go right. We will find him. We must." Jake nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "Then let's move." The corridor ahead was dark and full of unknown dangers. Sparks flew from broken conduits, and the walls were covered in scorch marks. Jake could hear the faint hum of the ship's failing systems, the sound echoing off the metal walls. Every step was cautious, every movement measured. As they moved, Jake's mind went back to the cubs, small, innocent, and vulnerable. They had faced horrors they could barely understand, and yet they had survived. And someone, a human, had given them that chance. Ethan Clark had risked his life when he had no reason to, and now it was up to them to make sure his courage had not been in vain. The left corridor opened into a larger room, dimly lit by emergency lights. Broken furniture and debris were scattered across the floor. Jake moved carefully, scanning the shadows. He could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of fear and hope. Somewhere in the ship, Ethan was alive, waiting, struggling. Lily placed her hand on Jake's arm. "He's here," she said quietly. "I can feel it. He left a trail for us, small signs he knew we would follow." Jake nodded. "Then we find him," he said, his voice steady. "We bring him back. The cubs are safe because of him. Now it's our turn." They moved forward, the alphas behind them, their massive forms blocking any sudden threat. Jake's eyes caught a glimmer of light reflecting off a metal panel. He crouched down and saw a small note scratched into the surface: "Keep going. You are not too late." A shiver ran down his spine. Ethan had been here. He had survived this far, and now they would find him. The cubs in the carrier made small noises, their tiny voices echoing in the empty corridor. Jake smiled softly, feeling a sense of warmth in the cold, mechanical space. They were alive. They had survived. And someone had given them that chance. A human who had no obligation, no duty, yet had acted anyway. As they continued down the corridor, Jake could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. This was more than a mission. This was a test of courage, of humanity, and of the bonds that could form even in the darkest places of space. And somewhere ahead, Ethan Clark waited, unaware of the rescue team moving toward him. He had fought alone for so long, yet he had not given up. And now they would meet him, and the story of bravery, hope, and the strength of humanity would continue. The compartment behind them held the cubs, alive and safe, and the alphas, eyes watched with a mixture of respect and curiosity. They had seen a human act in a way their kind rarely did, with cunning, compassion, and courage. And in that moment the first seeds of understanding were planted. Jake took a deep breath and moved forward. The corridor stretched ahead, dark, dangerous, and uncertain. But he was not afraid. They would find Ethan. They would bring him back. And together, humans and alphas would face whatever came next. The corridor was dark and narrow, and every sound seemed louder than it should be. Jake Miller moved carefully, his hand brushing along the metal wall for support. Sparks flew from broken wires overhead, and the air smelled of smoke and burnt metal. The cubs were safe behind him, tucked inside a protective carrier that Lily Harper carried. Their soft breathing and tiny movements reminded him why they could not fail. Jake led the way, his eyes scanning every shadow. He had followed the faint signs Ethan Clark had left behind, scratches on the walls, small debris pushed to one side, and the occasional note written in hurried handwriting. "Don't stop. Keep moving. They cannot catch me all at once." The human had thought ahead. He had left a trail just enough to guide someone who cared. The alphas moved behind them, their heavy bodies filling the corridor with quiet authority. Lyra stayed closest to the cubs, her head lowered, eyes scanning every corner. Rylan brought up the rear, moving like a predator even in the quietest spaces. The alphas did not speak much. They did not need to. Their presence was enough to keep danger away. "This place is bad," Lily said quietly, almost to herself. "I've never seen anything like it." Jake nodded, not taking his eyes off the path. "He did all this alone," he said. "Fought off enemies, set traps, protected the cubs. That's incredible." Lily glanced at him. "He's human," she said softly. "Humans can do amazing things when they have to." As they moved deeper, Jake noticed signs of a struggle. A panel had been ripped from the wall, leaving wires hanging loose. There were scorch marks on the floor as if something had exploded here, and in the corner, a small patch of blood, enough to make Jake's stomach tighten. "He's hurt," he said quietly, "or he was, but he's still alive. I can feel it." The alphas growled softly and Lyra stepped closer to Jake. "We must hurry," she said. "He protected the cubs, that is rare. We cannot fail him now." The corridor split into two paths. The left led to the observation deck, the last place sensors had shown life signs. The right went deeper into the ship, toward maintenance and storage areas. Jake considered both paths carefully. "We'll split up," he said. "I'll take the left. Lyra, you stay with the cubs." "Lily, you can come with me." Lyra's glowing eyes softened. "I will stay," she said. "The cubs' safety is my responsibility." Rylan nodded. "I will check the right path. We will find him." Jake and Lily moved left, careful not to make any sudden noise. Every step felt dangerous, and the shadows seemed to shift around them. Broken panels scraped against their boots, and sparks fell from the ceiling, sizzling as they hit the floor. "This is worse than I imagined," Lily whispered. "He must have been fighting constantly." Jake glanced at her. He wasn't just fighting, he was thinking. Every trap, every move, it was smart. He knew what he was doing. He planned for us to follow him. The observation deck door was partially open, and Jake could see faint light flickering inside. He moved closer, signaling Lily to stay low. Through the doorway he could see overturned furniture and broken equipment. The human had been here, and it had not been easy. Then a noise stopped him cold. A low growl echoed from the corner of the room. Something large moved in the shadows. Jake signaled Lily to stay back. The alphas had taught him how to read these signs. This was not just a random sound. This was a predator waiting, watching. Suddenly, a small creature lunged at them, claws out, teeth bared. Jake reacted instantly, pushing Lily behind him and grabbing a metal rod from the floor. He swung it with all his strength, striking the creature and sending it crashing into a panel. Sparks flew as it hit the metal and the creature hissed in pain before retreating into the darkness. Lily's eyes were wide. "He fought like that alone," she whispered. Jake nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead, "and he kept the cubs safe while doing it." The room was quiet again, but the tension remained. Jake moved carefully toward the notes Ethan had left, scanning the walls. Each message was short, simple, and direct. Keep moving, almost there. Watch for traps. They told a story of someone who was smart, brave, and determined. This human is remarkable, Lily said softly. I've never seen anyone think so fast under pressure, Jake agreed. And he's still out there. That's what matters. They moved toward a narrow corridor at the far end of the observation deck. It was dark, but faint lights flickered along the walls, giving them just enough visibility. The walls were scratched and dented, evidence of the battles that had taken place here. Jake ran his hand along a railing, feeling the subtle signs of movement, footprints, small scratches, and faint stains that guided them forward. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the lower levels. Dust fell from the ceiling and the floor trembled slightly. Jake froze. That has to be him, he whispered, or whatever he's fighting. Lily looked worried. Do you think he's in danger? Jake's jaw tightened. He always was, but he's human. He doesn't give up, not ever. They continued down the corridor, moving slowly but steadily. The room opened into a larger area, a storage bay filled with crates and containers. Some of the crates were broken, their contents spilled across the floor. Jake noticed signs of struggle, furniture overturned, scorch marks on the walls, and claw marks gouged deep into the metal. Lily crouched behind a crate, peeking around the corner. He's been fighting here, she whispered. He made it through somehow. Look at all this. Jake nodded. And he left a trail for us. We just have to follow it carefully. They moved forward, picking their way through the debris. Then they saw it. A small, human-sized figure crouched behind a stack of crates. He looked tired, his clothes torn, and there were small cuts and bruises on his face. But his eyes were bright and alert. He was Ethan Clark. Jake exhaled quietly, feeling a wave of relief. There he is, he said. Ethan looked up, startled but not afraid. You found me, he said, his voice hoarse. I thought I might have to make it on my own. Jake stepped forward, holding out a hand. You don't have to do that anymore. We've got you. Ethan nodded, pushing himself to his feet. He was small compared to the alphas and the cubs, but there was a strength in his stance that Jake had felt from the beginning, a courage that refused to back down, no matter the danger. You're lucky, Lily said, stepping closer. The cubs are safe because of you. You saved them all. Ethan's face showed a mix of exhaustion and pride. I had to, he said simply. Someone had to. They didn't deserve to die. Jake looked at him, understanding. And now it's our turn. We get you out of here. The corridor ahead was still dangerous. The ship was damaged, systems were failing, and enemies could still be lurking. But for the first time, Jake felt hope. Ethan was alive, the cubs were safe, and together they could face whatever came next. Lyra's voice came through a communicator. We have secured the cubs. Where are you? Jake responded. We found him, moving back to your location now. The alphas were not used to relying on humans, and yet here they were, following the lead of a small man who had risked everything to save creatures far larger and stronger than himself. Ethan had proven his worth in ways that brute strength alone could never achieve. As they moved carefully through the storage bay, Ethan explained what had happened since the cubs were trapped. He had fought off multiple predators using clever traps, his wits, and whatever materials he could find. He had guided the cubs to safety, knowing he might not survive. Every step he took had been dangerous, but he had done it anyway. Jake listened, impressed. You did all that alone? He asked. Ethan nodded. I had no choice. They were counting on me, and someone had to protect them. That's what humans do. Lily smiled. And now we protect you. They moved together, the alphas guiding the cubs, Jake and Lily supporting Ethan. The journey back through the ship was tense. Sparks flew, floor panels creaked, and the air smelled of burnt metal. But step by step they made progress. As they reached the point where the corridors split, Jake looked at Ethan. We're almost there, he said. Just a little further, you're going to make it. Ethan smiled faintly, exhaustion clear in his eyes. I'm glad I'm not alone anymore. The alphas watched with quiet respect. They had seen strength, courage, and intelligence in a human, and it had changed the way they viewed their world. This human had risked everything for creatures that were not his own, and in doing so, he had earned their trust and admiration. Jake felt a sense of pride. They were making progress, and soon, the cubs and Ethan would be safe. The mission was not over, but the first, most dangerous part had been completed. And he knew that together, humans and alphas could survive even the worst challenges. Jake, Lily, and Ethan moved carefully through the dimly lit corridors of the damaged ship. Every step echoed, bouncing off the metal walls. Sparks fell from the ceiling, and the smell of burnt circuits hung in the air. The alphas had taken the cubs to a safe compartment a few minutes earlier. Now it was up to Jake and his team to make sure Ethan made it out safely. Ethan walked with a slow, steady pace. His clothes were torn and small cuts and bruises marked his arms and face, but his eyes were sharp, alert, and determined. Jake could see the exhaustion in him, but there was something else too, an unshakable resolve. No matter what lay ahead, Ethan refused to give up. "This place is worse than I thought," Lily whispered. "How did you survive it alone?" Ethan shook his head slightly. "I didn't think about surviving," he said. "I only thought about the cubs. Every time I saw them in danger, I had to act. That's all I could do." Jake nodded, impressed. "You're more than brave, you're smart. Every trap, every move, it shows thinking beyond what most people can do under pressure." They turned a corner, and the corridor stretched ahead into darkness. The emergency lights flickered, casting moving shadows on the walls. Broken pipes hung from the ceiling, leaking steam. The floor was uneven, with loose panels and wires sticking out. It was easy to trip, and every sound could attract attention. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from above. Dust fell from the ceiling and the metal walls shuddered. Jake froze. "Someone or something is coming," he said quietly. Ethan's eyes scanned the corridor ahead. "Good," he said. "Let them come, I'm ready." Jake frowned. "You've already fought enough. Let us handle it." Ethan shook his head. "No, I'm not done yet. I can fight." Before Jake could answer, a shadow moved in the distance, something large, fast, and dangerous. A predator from the earlier skirmish. Its claws scraped the metal floor, making a sound that made Lily flinch. The creature's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and its teeth were bared in a low, menacing growl. Jake motioned for Lily to stay behind him. He picked up a piece of metal piping from the floor, holding it like a weapon. Ethan crouched low, his body tense, ready for whatever came next. The predator lunged. Jake reacted instinctively, swinging the metal pipe to block its attack. Sparks flew as claws met metal. Ethan moved with quick, precise movements, ducking under the predator and kicking it away from them. The creature hissed and lunged again, but Ethan was faster this time. He grabbed a loose wire, using it to trip the predator. It fell to the ground with a crash. Lily gasped. "He's incredible," she whispered. Jake nodded. "I told you, humans can do amazing things when they have to." The predator recovered quickly, but Ethan didn't hesitate. He ran forward, picking up a broken panel and swinging it at the creature. The panel hit with force, sending the predator staggering back. Sparks flew as it collided with wires on the wall. Then, before it could attack again, Ethan kicked a loose crate at it. The crate knocked it down, giving them a clear path to move forward. "That's enough for now," Jake said. "We move." They hurried down the corridor, moving past the wreckage and debris. Every corner could hide danger, every shadow could conceal another predator. But step by step, they continued, following the faint signs Ethan had left behind. Scratches on the walls, small notes, and even blood stains guided them forward. "This human is amazing," Lily said again. "He fought creatures bigger and stronger than him, and he never hesitated." Jake looked at Ethan, who was breathing heavily but still focused. "It's not just courage," he said. "It's determination. Humans fight not just for themselves, but for others. That's why he's still alive." As they moved deeper into the ship, they came across a door that led to the lower maintenance levels. The sensors here were offline and the lights were mostly out. The corridor beyond was dark, with only faint emergency lights guiding their steps. Jake gestured for Ethan to go first. "You lead," he said. "You know this path better than we do." Ethan nodded and moved forward cautiously. Every step was careful, calculated. He avoided loose panels and broken wires, checking corners and scanning shadows. It was clear he had memorized the layout during his earlier escape, using his knowledge of the ship to survive. The corridor narrowed further and a low growl echoed from ahead. Jake motioned for Lily to stay close. The predator from before, or maybe another one, was nearby. Ethan crouched low and moved silently, his body tense, ready to strike if necessary. Then they saw it, a small group of creatures moving in a loose formation. They were fast and aggressive, clearly hunting. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "We have to distract them," he whispered. "I can lure them and you two get past." Jake hesitated. "You sure about this?" Ethan nodded. "I have no choice. They'll attack anyway if we move together. I can handle this." Before Jake could argue, Ethan moved forward, throwing a piece of metal debris to the side. The sound echoed loudly, drawing the attention of the creatures. They hissed and lunged toward the noise, leaving the path clear for Jake and Lily. "Go!" Ethan shouted. Jake grabbed Lily and moved quickly down the corridor. They could hear the creatures chasing after the noise Ethan had made. Sparks flew as they collided with debris, and the sounds of claws scraping metal echoed through the ship. Ethan fought with skill and precision. He used whatever was at hand, pipes, wires, loose panels, to block and trip the creatures. His movements were fast and calculated, each strike designed to protect himself and give the others a chance to escape. After what felt like an eternity, Jake and Lily reached a safer part of the ship. They paused, catching their breath. "He's still back there," Lily said, worry in her voice. "We have to go back for him." Jake nodded. "And we will, but we need a plan." They moved cautiously, following the faint signs Ethan had left behind. The corridor opened into a larger room, filled with crates and broken equipment. It was quieter here, but the danger was still present. Ethan had fought hard to get them this far, but the predators were persistent. Ethan appeared from the shadows, breathing heavily but still standing. He smiled faintly at them. "You made it," he said. "I wasn't sure you would." Jake stepped forward. "Of course we did. Now let's get out of here before more of them show up." They moved together, careful but quick. Ethan led the way, using his knowledge of the ship to avoid danger. They passed broken doors, leaking pipes, and damaged panels. Every step was tense, every shadow could hide an enemy. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed from above. The ship trembled and dust fell from the ceiling. Another predator, or maybe several, was approaching. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed a loose panel and held it like a shield, ready to block any attack. Jake and Lily moved behind him, the Alpha's presence echoing through the communicator. "We are here," Lyra's voice said. "The cubs are safe. Move quickly. We will guide you." Ethan nodded. "Let's go," he said. They ran through the corridor, moving faster now. Sparks flew from the walls and the floor was unstable, but step by step they made progress. Ethan's knowledge of the ship, combined with his quick thinking and bravery, allowed them to avoid the worst dangers. They reached a junction where the corridor split again. Ethan paused, looking around. "This way," he said, leading them toward a ventilation shaft that would take them closer to the safe compartment. Jake followed closely, holding a metal rod for protection. Lily carried the cubs, her eyes wide but focused. They could hear the predators in the distance, hissing and growling, but Ethan's path was clear. As they entered the shaft, Ethan glanced back. "I'm glad you're here," he said quietly. "I couldn't have done this alone." Jake nodded. "You didn't have to." "That's what we're here for." The ventilation shaft was narrow but sturdy. They moved carefully, one by one, following Ethan's lead. Every sound echoed and the tension was high. But step by step, they continued, guided by the human who had risked everything to protect others. When they finally emerged near the safe compartment, Lyra and the other alphas were waiting. The cubs were safe, watching them with curious eyes. Ethan leaned against the wall, exhausted but alive. Lyra stepped forward, her massive head lowered in respect. "You have done well," she said. "Human, you have earned our trust." Ethan smiled faintly, his body shaking from exhaustion. "I only did what anyone should do," he said. "Protect the innocent." Jake and Lily exchanged glances. "Humans do amazing things when they have to," Jake said softly. "And you just proved it." The alphas growled softly, a sound of approval and respect. They had seen courage and intelligence in a human, and it had changed the way they viewed the world. Ethan Clarke had risked his life for others, and in doing so he had earned their admiration. For the first time, Jake felt hope. The cubs were safe, Ethan was alive, and together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The ship was still dangerous, but with courage, intelligence, and determination, they could survive anything. The safe compartment was no longer quiet. The ship shook again, stronger this time. A deep sound rolled through the metal walls, like something large moving through the structure itself. The lights flickered, then steadied, but the air felt heavy. Everyone knew this was not over yet. Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His hands trembled, not from fear but from exhaustion. Jake stood near him, watching the corridor entrance. Lily stayed close to the cubs, her body turned protectively toward them. The alphas formed a loose line near the doorway, their bodies tense, ready. Lyra lifted her head and sniffed the air. "They are coming," she said. "Not one, many." Jake tightened his grip on the metal rod in his hand. "How much time do we have?" "Very little," Lyra replied. Another crash echoed through the ship. Somewhere nearby, metal tore apart. The predators were not hunting quietly anymore. They were angry, they had lost prey, and now they wanted revenge. Ethan pushed himself off the wall. "They will come straight here," he said. "They know the cubs are alive, they can smell them." Lily looked at him, fear clear in her eyes. "Can we move the cubs again?" Lyra shook her head. "No, they are tired, and the paths behind us are no longer safe." Jake looked around the compartment. It was large but damaged. Crates were stacked unevenly. Broken panels lay on the floor. Wires hung from the ceiling. There was only one main entrance. "We make a stand," Jake said. "Here." The alphas growled in agreement. They moved quickly, positioning themselves near the entrance. Their claws dug into the metal floor. Their eyes focused forward. They were ready to fight. Ethan scanned the room. His eyes moved fast, taking in every detail. "We can slow them," he said. "Not stop them, but slow them." Jake looked at him. "How?" Ethan pointed to the hanging wires and broken panels. "Power lines are exposed. If we reroute them and overload the door frame, we can shock the first wave." Lily blinked. "That could kill you," Ethan nodded. "Or them." Jake stepped closer. "You are already injured. Let me do it." Ethan shook his head. "You don't know the wiring like I do. This is my job, trust me." For a moment Jake hesitated, then he nodded. "Do it, but be careful." Ethan moved fast despite his pain. He climbed onto a crate, pulling down loose cables. Sparks flew as he worked. His hands moved with purpose. He tied wires together, redirected power, and secured them to the metal frame around the entrance. The ship shook again. This time the sound was close. "They are here," Lily whispered. The cubs pressed together, making small sounds. Lyra lowered her body around them, shielding them completely. Her massive form became a living wall. Ethan jumped down from the crate. "It's ready," he said. "When they enter, they will feel it." Jake nodded. "Everyone ready." A shadow moved beyond the doorway. Then another. Low growls filled the corridor. Claws scraped against metal. The first predator charged through the doorway. The moment it crossed the frame, the wires sparked. A loud crack filled the air. The predator screamed as electricity surged through its body. It fell hard to the floor, twitching, but more followed. Two more predators rushed in, pushing past the first. The shock slowed them but did not stop them. They roared and attacked. The alphas moved as one. Lyra leapt forward, her claws flashing. She struck one predator across the face, sending it crashing into the wall. Ryland tackled another, his weight slamming it into the floor. The room filled with noise, growls, crashes, screams. Jake swung his metal rod, striking where he could. Lily grabbed a small tool and hurled it into a predator's eye, forcing it back. Ethan moved too. He grabbed a loose pipe and slammed it down on a predator's leg, breaking it. The creature fell and an alpha finished it. More predators poured in. The shock trap failed as wires burned out. The doorway was now open. "They keep coming," Jake shouted. Ethan's face was pale, but his eyes were fierce. "Then we keep fighting." The alphas fought with strength and skill, but even they were being pushed back. The predators were many, fast, desperate. One broke through the alpha line and rushed toward the cubs. Lily screamed. Ethan moved without thinking. He ran forward, placing himself between the predator and the cubs. The creature struck him hard, claws tearing into his side. Ethan fell gasping, but he did not move away. Instead, he reached up and shoved a broken power cell into the predator's open mouth. "Now," he whispered. The cell exploded. The blast threw Ethan back. The predator collapsed dead. The room went still for a moment. Jake rushed to Ethan's side. "Ethan, stay with me." Ethan coughed, blood on his lips. "Cubs safe," Jake nodded. "Yes, because of you." The remaining predators hesitated. Something had changed. They looked at the human on the floor, small, broken, still breathing. And still fighting. The alphas noticed it too. Lyra stepped forward and roared. It was not just a sound of anger, it was a call, a challenge. Ryland joined her. Then the others. The predators backed away. Slowly, one by one, they retreated into the corridor. Silence returned, broken only by heavy breathing. Jake knelt beside Ethan, pressing a cloth against his wound. "You should not have done that." Ethan smiled weakly. "Someone had to." Lily joined them, her hands shaking. "You almost died." Ethan looked past her toward the cubs. They were peeking out from behind Lyra, eyes wide. "They are alive," he said. "That's enough." Lyra walked toward him. She lowered her massive head until her eyes were level with his. "You stood alone," she said, "against death, against fear, for our young." Ethan tried to speak, but his voice failed. Lyra straightened and turned to the others. "This human is Pack." The words filled the room. Jake felt a chill. Lily's eyes widened. The alphas bowed their heads slightly toward Ethan. Respect. Jake helped Ethan sit up. "You hear that?" he said softly. "You changed everything." Ethan closed his eyes. "I just did what was right." The ship creaked again, but the danger had passed. The predators were gone. The cubs were safe for now. Jake looked around the damaged compartment, at the alphas standing guard, at Lily holding the cubs, at Ethan bleeding but alive. Humanity had been tested, and humanity had answered. The safe compartment was quiet now, except for the hum of the damaged ship. The predators had retreated. The alphas stood tall, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, watching the cubs and the human who had saved them. Ethan Clarke leaned against a wall, exhausted, blood staining his clothes. Every breath was heavy, but his eyes were calm. He had done what he had come to do. Jake Miller knelt beside him, holding a cloth to one of the deeper cuts on his side. "You shouldn't have risked so much," he said. His voice was low but firm. "You almost died, Ethan. You shouldn't have been alone in there." Ethan shook his head slowly. "I had no choice," he said. "The cubs, they needed me. Someone had to make sure they survived." Lily Harper stepped closer, still holding one of the cubs gently. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes were full of admiration. "You didn't just save them," she said softly. "You taught all of us something about courage, about humans." Ethan looked at her, his face softening. "Humans fight, not because we have to, but because we can't stand by and watch others suffer. That's who we are." Lyra, the alpha female, stepped forward. She lowered her massive head so her glowing eyes were level with Ethan's. "You are Pack," she said. "Not by blood, but by courage and heart. You risked yourself for those who could not defend themselves. That is rare among humans." It is rare among any species. Ethan blinked, a small smile forming despite the pain. I'm just one human among many. Rylan, the alpha male, growled softly. One human who showed us what our children are worth protecting. You have taught us more than words can say. Your kind is stronger than we thought. Jake helped Ethan to his feet. You showed them our strength, he said. Not just strength with weapons or claws, but with mind, courage, and heart. That's humanity. The cubs peeped out from behind Lyra, their small eyes wide. One stepped forward slowly, touching Ethan's leg with its tiny paw. Ethan bent down, careful not to hurt it, and whispered, "Hello there, you're safe now." Lyra growled softly, almost a sound of approval. "They see what you are," she said. "A protector, a warrior. Even in your small frame, you fought like the strongest of us." Ethan looked around the compartment at Jake, Lily, and the alphas. "I didn't do it for praise," he said. "I did it because it was right. I couldn't leave them." Lyra nodded slowly. "And that is what makes humans unique, brave, unyielding. They fight not for themselves, but for those they care for. That is something the galaxy forgets too often." Jake looked at Ethan's side. The cut was deep but not life-threatening. "You need proper treatment," he said. "We can't just leave you like this." Ethan shook his head, forcing a weak smile. "I'll manage. For now, the cubs are more important. They are alive. That is enough for me." Lily glanced at the cubs, then at Ethan. "You should rest," she said firmly. "Even the strongest warriors need help sometimes." The alphas moved closer to the cubs, forming a protective circle around them. Their presence was strong and comforting. Ethan looked at them and nodded. "You'll take care of them," he said. Lyra's massive head tilted slightly. "We will, but know this, human, you will always be remembered. You risked yourself for us when most of your kind would not. That is something we will honor." Rylan growled softly. "Your name will be carried with our cubs, with the pack. Your courage will not be forgotten." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had not expected gratitude from creatures so large and powerful. They had once been hunters, predators of incredible skill. And now they looked at him with respect. Respect he had earned not through strength alone, but through courage, quick thinking, and heart. Jake placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You've shown them something they couldn't understand until now," he said. "Humans fight with purpose. Humans fight for others. That's what makes us dangerous and strong." The cubs began to make small, happy noises. One of them climbed onto Lyra's back, peeking curiously at Ethan. He bent down, letting it touch his hand gently. "See," he whispered. "You're safe. You can rest now." The alphas growled softly, not threateningly, but in acknowledgement of what had been done. The predators that had attacked earlier were gone. The humans had survived, and in doing so, had changed the way the alphas saw their world. Jake looked around the compartment. "We should prepare to leave," he said. "The ship is not stable. We've held off the predators for now, but they may return and the ship itself may fail soon." Ethan nodded, still weak but determined. "Lead the way," he said. They moved slowly through the ship, Jake and Lily supporting Ethan when he stumbled. The cubs were secure with the alphas, who moved alongside them, their massive bodies guarding the small creatures like walls of steel. As they reached a safer corridor, Jake glanced at Ethan. "You've done more than anyone could ask," he said. "You've shown them what humans are capable of. That's why they respect you." Ethan shook his head faintly. "I just did what needed to be done," he said. "That's all any of us can do." Lily smiled, brushing a hand over his shoulder. "Sometimes, doing what needs to be done is enough to change the galaxy," she said softly. The group finally reached a part of the ship that was more stable. Emergency lights cast a soft glow, and the air was less heavy. Ethan leaned against the wall, exhaustion clear in his body but pride clear in his eyes. Lyra approached him, lowering her massive head once more. "Human," she said, "your actions today have reminded us of something important. We alphas are hunters. We are strong, but strength alone does not protect the young. Only courage, only heart can do that. You have shown us the truth of humanity. You have reminded us that even the smallest among us can fight with great power." Ethan smiled faintly, touching the cubs through the alpha barrier. "They're brave," he said, "and I only helped a little. They're the real fighters." Ryland stepped forward, his deep voice rumbling. "Human, your courage is unmatched, and your strength is more than physical. It is your mind, your spirit, and your willingness to act when others would not. That is why we respect you." Jake stepped forward, looking at Ethan with admiration. "You've done more than survive," he said. "You've shown them humanity. And humanity is stronger than they imagined." Ethan shook his head slightly. "I didn't do it for them to respect me. I did it because it was the right thing to do. That's all humans need to be: courage, heart, a will to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Lyra's eyes softened. "And that is enough, that is more than enough." The cubs made small, happy noises, and Ethan reached down to touch them gently. He could see the relief in their eyes. They were safe. He had done his job. Jake looked around the compartment once more. The ship was still damaged. Predators might return. But in this moment there was peace. The Alphas had learned something important about humans, and Ethan had survived to teach them. "You've changed them," Lily said softly. "They'll never see humans the same way again." Ethan nodded faintly. "That's the point," he said. "They need to know what we can do, what we are capable of, not with strength alone, but with heart." The Alphas began to move, guiding the cubs carefully. Their massive forms were protective, but they no longer moved with the suspicion and dominance that had marked their kind for generations. They had seen what one human could do, and it had opened their eyes. Jake helped Ethan to a safer part of the ship. "We'll get you treated soon," he said, "but you're alive, and that's what matters." Ethan leaned back against the wall, looking at the cubs with a tired but proud smile. "They're alive," he said again, "and that's what matters most. The rest will follow." The Alphas watched him quietly, and for the first time they saw a truth they could not deny. Humans were not just fragile creatures. Humans were smart, courageous, and fearless when it mattered. They were fighters not because they had to be, but because they chose to be. Lyra stepped closer, her massive head lowered. "We will remember this day," she said. "Your actions, human, will be passed to our young. They will know what you did, and they will respect humans because of you." Ethan nodded, closing his eyes briefly. "That's all I ever wanted," he said. "To protect, to survive, to make sure the innocent are safe." Jake, Lily, and the Alphas stood quietly for a moment, watching the cubs. The ship groaned around them, but it did not matter. They had survived. They had learned. And humanity had shown its true power: heart, courage, and will. For the first time in a long time, the compartment felt safe. The predators were gone, the cubs were alive, and Ethan Clark, a single human, had changed the way an entire species thought about humans. The galaxy was wide, dangerous, and unpredictable, but humanity had made its mark. And in that moment, the Alphas understood a truth that would stay with them forever: never underestimate humans.